Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to today's collective love quotes. I hope this message finds you in peace and joy. I'm so grateful to have you here, and I'm truly excited to dive into the beauty of love through these heartfelt words. If you have it, love. And if you don't have it, it doesn't matter much what else you have. Love is not patronizing, and charity isn't about pity. It is about love. Charity and love are the same. With charity you give love, so don't just give money, but reach out your hand instead. The whole image is that eternal suffering awaits anyone who questions God's infinite love. That's the message we're brought up with, isn't it? Believe or die. Thank you for giving, Lord, for all those options. Some girls are full of heartache and poetry, and those are the kind of girls who try to save wolves instead of running away from them. Jesus Christ lived in the midst of his enemies. At the end, all his disciples deserted him. On the cross, he was utterly alone, surrounded by evildoers and mockers. For this cause he had come to bring peace to the enemies of God. So the Christian, too, belongs not in the seclusion of a cloistered life, but in the thick of foes. There is his commission, his work. The kingdom is to be in the midst of your enemies, and he who will not suffer this does not want to be of the kingdom of Christ. He wants to be among friends, to sit among roses and lilies, not with the bad people, but the devout people. Oh, you blasphemers and betrayers of Christ! If Christ had done what you are doing, who would ever have been spared? Luther, I'll follow thee and make a heaven of hell, to die upon the hand I love so well. There is one friend in the life of each of us who seems not a separate person, however dear and beloved, but an expansion, an interpretation of oneself, the very meaning of one's soul. Now there is one thing I can tell you. You will enjoy certain pleasures you would not fathom now. When you still had your mother, you often thought of the days when you would have her no longer. Now you will often think of days past when you had her. When you are used to this horrible thing that they will forever be cast into the past, then you will gently feel her revive, returning to take her place, her entire place, beside you. At the present time, this is not yet possible. Let yourself be inert, wait till the incomprehensible power, that has broken you restores you a little. I say a little, for henceforth you will always keep something broken about you. Tell yourself this too, for it is a kind of pleasure to know that you will never love less, that you will never be consoled, that you will constantly remember more and more. If love is like a possession, maybe my letter are like my exorcisms. Love, no such thing. Whatever it is that binds families and married couples together, that's not love. That's stupidity or selfishness or fear. Love doesn't exist. Self-interest exists. Attachment based on personal gain exists. Complacency exists, but not love. Love has to be reinvented. That's certain. Life is short. From here to that old car you know so well, there is a stretch of 20-25 paces. It is a very short walk. Make those 25 steps, now. Right now, come just as you are, and we shall live happily ever after. Thank you, for gracing my life with your lovely presence, for adding the sweet measure of your soul to my existence. The water far below was black in the shadow of the ship. A plank creaked, she froze. No noisy jump. It would have to be a dive, head down into darkness. She'd never dived at night. Like the fact that the person Sirius cared for, the most about in the world was you, said Dumbledore quietly. Self-talk reflects your innermost feelings. But Phidias was better than most men, since he made beautiful sculptures. He was even making one of her well, he called it Athena. But anyone could see it looked like her. She held up her calloused, grimy fingers. Leo couldn't help thinking there was nothing hotter than a girl who didn't mind getting her hands dirty. But of course, that was just a general comment. Didn't apply to Calypso, obviously. She fit. her head under his chin, and he could feel her weight settle into him. He held her tight and words spilled out of him without prior composition, and this time he made no effort to clamp them off. He told her about the first time he had looked on the back of her neck as she sat in the church pew, of the feeling that had never let go of him since. He talked to her of the great waste of years between then and now, a long time gone. And it was pointless, he said, to think how those years could have been put to better use, for he could hardly have put them to worse. There was no recovering them now. You could grieve endlessly for the loss of time and the damage done therein, for the dead and for your own lost self. But what the wisdom of the ages says is that we do well not to grieve on. And those old ones knew a thing or two and had some truth to tell, Inman said. For you can grieve your heart out, and in the end you are still where you are. All your grief hasn't changed a thing. What you have lost will not be returned to you. It will always be lost. You're left with only your scars to mark the void. All you can choose to do is go on or not. But if you go on, it's knowing you carry your scars with you. Nevertheless, over all those wasted years, he had held in his mind the wish to kiss her on the back of her neck, and now he had done it. There was a redemption of some kind. He believed in such complete fulfillment of a desire so long deferred. Depression is the flaw in love. To be creatures who love, we must be creatures who can despair at what we lose, and depression is the mechanism of that despair. When we are in love, we are convinced nobody else will do. But as time goes, others do and often do much, much better. The problem, of course, was that he saw the world in black and white, and he got to decide what was black and what was white. You can't love a person who lives that way without fearing him to, maybe even hating him a little. He must love you very much, Gabriel said. Once I had my footing, I couldn't look at him. What makes you say that? Gabriel sighed. I've known Maxon since he was a child. He's never stood up to his father like that. Happiness, you see, it's just an illusion. A fate, a heavenly sleight of hand, designed to make you believe in fairy tales. But there's no happily ever after. You'll only find happy endings in books. Some books. Perfect love is the most beautiful of all frustrations, because it is more than one can express. I love you, even if there isn't any me, or any love, or even any life. I love you. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head. I have seen roses, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the ground. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as Rearius any she belied with false compare. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true? But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. Broad's life was a slow realization that the world was not for her, and that for whatever reason, she would never be happy and honest at the same time. She felt as if she were brimming, always producing and hoarding more love inside her, but there was no release, ... So she had to satisfy herself with the idea of love, loving, the loving of things whose existence she didn't care at all about. Love itself became the object of her love. She loved herself in love, she loved loving love, as love loves loving, and was able, in that way, to reconcile herself with a world that fell so short of what she would have hoped for. It was not the world that was the great and saving lie, but her willingness to make it beautiful and fair, to live a once-removed life, in a world once removed from the one in which everyone else seemed to exist. They said that love was terrifying and tender, wild and sweet, and none of it made any sense. But now I knew that every mad word was true. Believing doesn't make God real. Unbelief doesn't make him disappear. Your opinion doesn't change reality.